Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Malik from MHC, and welcome to another session of Expert Insights. Today, I'm joined by Rodney Frye, who has a wealth of experience in customer communications management and is the leading expert at MHC, helping insurance companies issue policies faster with greater control and lower costs. So welcome, Rodney. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sharon. Glad to be here.
So I know the pressures just mentioned, for greater speed, lower costs. These are common to all insurers, but they are especially pronounced in specialty insurance where policies are less standard and inherently more complex. So let's make this the conversation today. And let's start with the policies themselves. Why, in your opinion, is there so little standardization in specialty insurance? And then what challenge does this create for brokers trying to generate quotes?
A great question. So let's compare personal insurance and specialty insurance. In personal insurance, policies are highly standardized. And because carriers are dealing with common, repeatable risk across thousands of policyholders, a single-family home or a standard car insurance that we all have, those risks are well understood. Coverage rules, pricing models, policy language are already defined. Policy can often be generated with a click of a button. And so specialty insurance is much different than that. It doesn't work that way. You might be insuring a multi-million-dollar boat with a helicopter on it, or a unique property, or providing errors and omissions for different companies, or it may be cyber insurance. There isn't a standard policy that you can just pull off the shelf. Every policy often requires custom language, specific terms, exclusions, and then conditions, written to reflect the unique risk that's being covered. Now, coverage and risk are different for every policy holder.
Okay, so then when policies require that level of customization, how does it affect the way work actually gets done behind the scenes?
Yeah, because every specialty insurance policy is different, it's much harder to automate the end-to-end workflow with traditional policy admin systems. And so when standardization systems don't apply, work moves outside the system. Teams rely on documents and emails to capture back and forth conversations, review language, and make exceptions and move the process forward. Now, this approach does keep things moving, and there's many policies today that are issued through manual processes, and people are getting business done. But it also introduces rework and delays and increases operational cost. Importantly, it slows down response times at an exact moment that brokers and customers are comparing options and making decisions on what coverage they're going to carry.
Okay. So it makes sense. It's very exception driven, very manual. And where in your experience does this cause the most pain for teams that are working on a specialty policy? Like at what part of the process?
The pain of the manual exception driven work shows up most clearly in the quote to bind process, between when a broker requests a quote and the customer actually signs the policy. And this is because in specialty insurance, the process is highly unpredictable. Underwriting has to determine whether standard terms apply or whether the policy requires custom language, exceptions, or exclusions, and then they have to go about writing it. This can mean multiple reviews and approvals across underwriting, legal, operations, and then actually made available to the core system. Because this work is manual, timelines stretch, cost rise, risk increased, and this is where carriers are exposed in terms of losing the momentum with the broker and potentially losing the deal. Brokers aren't waiting on just on one carrier. They're shopping multiple options, as we all know. In addition, it also affects the relationship with the broker because they're getting frustrated. Now, I've worked with many carriers, and when they automate this process, adding clear ownership, better visibility, and consistent reviews, they see meaningful improvements in speed, efficiency, cost, and customer experience, in addition to reducing risk. Most importantly, they put themselves in a better position to win the business and strengthen the loyalty of their existing customers, as well as building an initial strong relationship with new customers.
Okay. So there's a lot at stake here, and it sounds to me like, most carriers across the board, they know about these bottlenecks related to manual workarounds for specialty insurance. But what keeps these manual processes in place? Why are they so hard to address?
I will tell you now, if you talk to any carrier, they want to get rid of manual processes, and it is a goal. And like I said, McKinsey suggests as much as 40 to 60% of insurance-related tasks are still performed manually by the staff. And when you're using these manual processes to coordinate insurance quotes, visibility is a big issue. What I mean is when work and information is spread across email, shared folders, individual desktops, teams often don't know where a submission stands, who owns it, or what approvals are still pending. We've all experienced it. We send an email out, a week later we go, hey, we never got a response. Well, these responses are critical, right? And what's happening? And without a centralized location for information, decisions over time get revisited, the clauses and documents get recreated, either because terms can't find what they need, or they don't trust exactly what exists, or it's a new coverage that they're doing. And where underwriting teams have clear guardrails and better visibility into prior decisions, with centralized coordination and reviews, carriers can reduce friction, improve sales cycle times, and operate more predictably and cost efficiently at scale. They have insights, right? And that's the big piece of it. They want insights to be able to manage that centralized process versus, like we mentioned earlier, and it's not uncommon, many carriers have it. It's manual, and it's the death of an email where it goes, and it takes weeks to get responses back.
Right. So it's basically about getting all of that information, all of those clauses, all of those decisions into a centralized, coordinated place where they can also have a process for clear approvals, decisions. And so that seems to be the goal. But when it actually comes to implementing this, in your experience, what really works in practice, and how can they add these improvements without taking on like a large scale disruptive change? So what's practical?
I visit with many carriers, and everybody wants to improve processes, right? And especially these manual processes. But a lot of times organizations look to do these major modernizations. And really, the process of automating this content management doesn't rely on a complete policy admin system overhaul. I mean, it may in terms of your organization, but you don't have to wait for that overhaul. There's things you can do today. And in terms of what I've recommended with many carriers, and they've done it, is they integrate solutions with their current core systems. That way they transform the business process of managing the content, enabling faster turnaround to get the policies. And so then rather than replacing the core policy admin system, we can integrate core functionality to bring the needed structure to manual exception-driven work. And again, with giving clear ownership, defined and consistent approval paths, an essential place for approved language and documentation. And if you are doing a new policy admin system transformation, it can plug into that too when that transformation's done. And this allows you to get rid of those manual processes. What I've seen with carriers who implement systems that enable faster approvals, better efficiency, and quicker time to bind can make themselves more competitive, set themselves up to achieve the business growth that they desire.
Right. Okay. So this is great insights. It's not about some big overhaul with the core policy admin system. It's about adding the right layer of structure and coordination around this complex, high-value work that typically is pushed out of the core policy and the standard process. So even though the work can't be standardized, at least some of the communications and information can be. Yeah. So I really appreciate your insights.
No, absolutely. And you're right. It's about automating some tasks. You may not automate it all, but you can automate that process that slows the ability to get to binding a policy and, working with those customers. So I appreciate all the great questions you asked me today. And again, to anybody watching this video, if this conversation resonates with you in any way, please add me to your network and message me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect and just discuss some options that you can consider to bring structure and automation to manage your highly complex, especially insurance quotes, more efficiently, but more importantly, the quotes, getting them to be bound and getting a new policy holder and driving to achieve your business objectives. So again, thank you for listening today, and I enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you all have a great afternoon and the rest of your day. Thanks.